What's wrong with a man cave? What, are you speechless all of a sudden?
Long before reality TV star Eric Eremita appeared on set for HGTV, his signature style set him apart.
I appreciate the wow factor, and when I do work for my clients and my clients become friends and they come into a space, they'll turn around and say, Eric did this. I could tell. I know how he puts a job together. I know how he puts a space together.
Appearing on HGTV shows like Love It or List It and Brother vs. Brother, the contractor and designer has always pushed through even the toughest jobs.
I try to run a smooth ship, but there's always a wave that's going to come that's going to knock you around a little bit. You have to learn how to ride over those waves and get through it and make adjustments.
The 52-year-old father of three would face a battle he couldn't fight on his own. With COVID-19 reaching pandemic proportions, Eric says he kept losing his focus.
Then the second thing was a flu-like symptoms started coming on. Fevers and things of that nature, thinking that I had the flu. At the same time, my wife started to get it.
Immediately, Eric and his wife Joanne went into quarantine in their Staten Island home. He went upstairs while Joanne stayed on the first floor. Their three kids camped out in the finished basement.
It started getting high fevers. My wife says my fever went up to over 104. We left it in God's hands.
One day, a week later, Joanne came to check on her husband. This time, he was having difficulty breathing and was turning blue.
She came upstairs because she didn't really know what was happening, and she turned around and says, "You don't look good. Can you breathe?"
That's the last thing he remembers. Two weeks later, Eric was taken off the ventilator.
The first thing waking up in the hospital is that the nurses brought over an iPad, and my family was on the other side of it. They were shocked and amazed that I pulled through.
It was then Eric learned he'd been in the hospital for 3 weeks and wasn't expected to make it.
It's life-altering, but I can't wait to get home to see my kids and my wife and just hug them and squeeze them.
Eric also learned what he and many others believe brought him from death's door. Thousands of people lifting him up in prayer.
It's overwhelming, man. It's really, really overwhelming. You're talking about fans, you're talking about friends, you're talking about family. You're talking about so many different people who were looking out for me. Power of prayer, brother. That's all I could say.
And Eric says God gave him another sign that he was the one who brought him through.
13 has a history with me in the Italian heritage. 13 is a lucky number, but that's not where it starts. I got married on February 13th, the day before Valentine's Day. And I'm starting a clothing line called 13. And now I'll fast forward it to the day I got off the ventilator. The day I got off the ventilator was April 13th. Waking up off the ventilator on 4/13 means a lot. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Philippians 4:13.
10 days later, Eric was well enough to go home. His story of healing inspired a very special send-off.
They got everybody together. ICU, the emergency room, anybody who worked on me or anybody that knew me. And it wasn't from being on television. They did it because I was a miracle to them. I was the first person to leave off a ventilator. It was very uplifting to them. It gave them signs of hope, and it gave people who got caught up in this pandemic signs of hope as well.
Eric reunited with his family and started regaining his strength. By then, his wife had also fully recovered from the virus at home, and his children were not infected. Eric is excited to get back to work with renewed faith that God is in control.
You start to look at life a little differently. Don't sweat all that stuff. It's going to happen anyway. Don't worry about what needs to be done next. God's got a plan, okay? It's going to happen. So if you put all that together and you leave it In his hands, you'll be in good shape.